Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have 3 terrifying encounters to share with you. I also have some very interesting video footage of what people are calling a Dogman pup. Now, last night I shared some. Today I'm going to share a little bit more, some more that I found. And, well, you guys can make your own mind up. My mind is already made up. And I'm leaving that to you guys to decide, because I don't want to have my decision or what I think influence you guys on yours. So before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It's absolutely free. It does not cost you a penny. Click that like button. And please, leave a comment. It really does help, and guys, it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's encounters, shall we? Today's first encounter. The year was 1989. I was living in the outskirts of Greensboro, North Carolina. I had 3 dogs living with me at the time. 1 black lab, 1 yellow lab, and 1 German Shepherd mix. All of which were females. The trio of dogs were excellent for the wooded environment that I resided in at the time. They were extremely intelligent and in touch with their natural habitat. None of them were the type to bark for no reason. When they did sound the alarms, it was always because predators were nearby, and let me tell you, nothing intimidated them. At least, that's what I once thought. I'd been living in this home for over 2 years when I was mysteriously woken up by all of my dogs whimpering at once. All 3 of them slept near the foot of my bed, and their behavior was so out of the norm that I remember questioning myself if I was in a dream or not. The German Shepherd, Blair, was doing circles near my bedroom door. It was hard to tell if she wanted to investigate something or if she wanted to escape the bedroom for whatever reason. I tried to hush them for quite some time without any success. None of them were looking toward either of my bedroom windows, so it was more likely they had smelled something or heard something that my senses did not pick up on. Eventually, I became so restless that I let Blair walk out of the room, hoping to get some clue of what had stirred them all up. My other dogs, Greta and Mama, stayed put in my room, continuing their soft whimpers. I grabbed a glass of water while I watched Blair trot in circles around my living room coffee table. I did notice that she was occasionally glancing up toward the windows, but it was apparent that she couldn't see anything out of them. After a few moments of watching the same thing, I asked Blair back into the bedroom and allowed all 3 dogs to jump up on the bed with me. That was something I rarely did. But I couldn't think of anything else to get them to calm down. There was something about the 4 of us being huddled together that did help them to calm down. For the next couple of weeks, everything in life proceeded as normal. It got to the point where I was able to brush off that strange behavior. I guess I was just convinced that one of them was overreacting and it caused the others to become concerned for no reason at all. Then I woke up to the same thing. This time, the trio seemed even more worked up than the last time. I'm one of those people who are woken up very easily and find it very challenging to fall back to sleep. Unfortunately, this pattern turned into a regular thing after the second incident, without any indication as to what was getting the dogs so worked up. Even though I didn't have much money to spend on that sort of thing, I brought the three of them for an examination to the vets. I was starting to become a variety of strange theories, one of them being that I may have a terminal illness, and they could somehow sense it. You hear all the time about weird things like that, so I became very open-minded about what was bothering them. After the vet ran tests on all three of the dogs and couldn't find anything wrong with them, I decided to see my physician for the first time in years. I just wanted to squash the worries. My doctor would end up revealing to me that I was pretty much as healthy as one could get for a 44-year-old person. Even though I was relieved to learn that I was physically okay and so were the dogs, it didn't solve the nighttime routine. It had gotten so bad that I was losing hours of sleep almost every night. It was badly affecting my schedule, and I wasn't getting nearly as much work done on the job. I had searched my yard multiple times without finding any evidence of intruders or animals, but there was one day where I came home from work at lunchtime to make a sandwich, and I noticed a few very strange-looking tracks in the dirt by my driveway, kind of similar to what would come from a large wolf, but the toes were much longer than any wild dog I knew to exist. Additionally, I knew my dogs wouldn't have been intimidated by a rogue wolf. Together, the three of them were confident that they could take on any intrusive wild animal. It was that same night that my dogs woke me again. Even though I was weirded out by the tracks I had found earlier that day, I just couldn't take it anymore. I went outside with a flashlight and my dogs were essentially screaming. It was as if they were begging me to come back into the house. When I closed the door behind me, I could hear them whimpering louder. They were super concerned about my well-being. I started pointing the flashlight near the trees, scanning the area for any movement. I remember how still everything felt at that very moment. It was as if time had stopped. As I neared the edge of the trees, my heart started to beat extremely fast, and I was overcome by this feeling that I should not be out here. My instincts were telling me that I should have listened to my dogs. It was as I was turning around to head back inside that the shine from my flashlight landed on a figure that was more than halfway cloaked by the hanging pine trees, but I could see it enough to know that it was looking directly at me. Suddenly, I caught sight of this massive head as it steadily ducked beneath the branch. The thing was standing on two legs, but from what I could see of its head, it reminded me so much of my own German Shepherd mix, only much, much larger. Its face was considerably wider. The creature was multiple shades of dark brown and black and was completely covered in fur. The branch, which it lowered its head below, was considerably high, making it clear as day that this thing was not short. I don't think it was standing up straight, but I'm going to throw it out there that I think this thing was at least 8 feet tall. I could see one of its hands, and I say hand because it didn't look like a paw. I could see a long opposable thumb. All of the fingers had long nails extending from them. I wanted to turn and run from this thing, but there was no question that it would be able to tackle me before I could even get to the door. I truly felt as though I was at this thing's mercy. I had been so devastated by the sighting of this creature that I hadn't even noticed my dogs were now barking louder and clawing at the door. I think it's because they wanted to protect me, and they were very aware of what stood only a few yards away. The creature continued to hunch its head beneath the branch and then bring it back up. It would change its position every few seconds while keeping the rest of its body completely still. I'm not even totally sure that it knew I could see it until it stood behind the tree. Then a slight sigh of relief came over me as I watched the creature swiftly turn and head back into the woods. As soon as I could no longer see this creature, that's when I did a 180 and sprinted toward the door. It felt as though I was running in slow motion, like I couldn't get inside fast enough, and thankfully, I made it to the door and slammed it closed behind me. When I walked over to the window to close the blinds, that's when I came face to face with this monstrous creature. It was standing inches away from the window, its shoulders hunched so that its head was leveled with mine. You're going to think this sounds insane, but those eyes were purely human. It's because of this experience that I now do not doubt that werewolves, lycans, or however you want to refer to them, are as real as ever. It didn't take long for me to realize that all three of my dogs had left the room, I guess seeing the creature that up close crossed the line, and they were too intimidated to let out another peep, even if it was to warn me, their master. I always wondered what my dogs thought of this creature. Do they know the truth about what it was? Did they see it as some sort of demonic entity, or just another animal that happens to be much more powerful? If my theory is correct, could they tell that this creature had human DNA? That is something that has always intrigued me. There's no question that dogs possess senses that are superior to ours. I so badly wish I could have asked my dog for their analysis of the creature that had visited us that night. I remember how the creature's breath quickly began to fog up the glass. It was amazing to me how I never heard it take a single step while it moved toward the home. Maybe I was just too scared to pay attention at the time, but if these creatures are as stealthy as ninjas, that makes their existence all the more terrifying. It continued to stare at me as I slowly backed away from the window. I backed around the corner and into the kitchen and grabbed the largest butcher knife I had, waited a few moments, then peeked around the corner. I could see nothing through the window. I'm not sure how long I waited, but I stood there, leaning against the counter, pretty much waiting for any sign of noise. All was silent. Eventually, my dogs came trotting out of hiding, and I took that as a sign that the creature had vacated the area. My dogs and I stayed up for the remainder of the night, and we went to get a motel room the following night. I ended up renting an apartment on a month-to-month basis and realized I was too frightened to stay another night in my home. I ended up selling the house to a burly fella who was really into deer hunting. I assumed that he had seen some weird things in the woods, so I didn't hesitate to tell him about my experience. He claimed that he had never seen anything that unusual. However, he had heard many strange noises that he could not pinpoint to any known animal. My experience did not deter him from making the purchase. If anything, it seemed to excite me even more. Many of you can seal the deal. I told myself that I was going to follow up with the purchase, whether it was sooner or not. And I never got around to it. I kicked on a letter to my old rep. 7 years ago, simply asked if the fellow still lived there, but I never received a response. So, I took it further. I don't think I'll ever know for sure what I encountered while living on the old property, but I do know for sure that there are so many truths out there surrounding Wyoming. Alright guys, last night I shared a video clip of what people are claiming is a Dogman puppy up on a hill with some guys. either chasing it or messing around with it. I really couldn't tell, but I don't know. I'm not going to tell you guys how I feel about this photo or video, excuse me. There is a second video clip that goes along with it now, and I just want you guys to look and really analyze the video. A lot of people may see this creature. It kind of did like this, like kind of thing with its head, almost like a tilt, like it howled or whatever. I had to, of course, they were speaking in Spanish, but I had to. You didn't hear the dog howl or this whatever howl. All right, I'm not even going to call it a dog, which was strange, but I had to take the sound out of it because of a song, and I didn't want to get hit with a strike. But if someone was to see that and see this thing's face, they may think that it's real 100%. I'm not claiming this is real. I don't know what it is. I have my opinions of what it is, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to affect yours. The second clip, though, you can see it a little more clearly. And they are messing with it. These guys are messing with this thing, whatever it is. But there's one angle that whatever this thing is starts to kind of lope or hop kind of up toward the embankment. Look at its lower legs and feet. That's the dead giveaway to me. Honestly, when looking at photos and looking at videos, because, you know, with all of the technology out there, there are a lot of hoaxes. You really need to break these videos down, these photos down. And that's about as far as I will tell you what my opinion is. Just remember when it's kind of turned to the side and it kind of lopes a little bit up that hill. Just look at its lower legs and its feet area, please. All right, here you go.
Deixa eu ver se tem alguma coisa daí, ok? Fica de olho. Fica, mano, vai sair, mano. Olha lá, velho. Olha aqui, louco. Cuidado, velho. Cuidado, Guilherme. Como aqui perder aquilo ali, louco?
Ô, que é isso aí, mano? Que é isso?
Cuidado, toma cuidado. Cuidado, Guilherme. Chega perto, toma cuidado.
Ô, tem que tomar cuidado com isso aí, velho. Ô, toma cuidado, velho.
Ô, toma cuidado, velho. Ô, Cid, eu vou estressar, velho.
Que bagulho estranho que é esse aí, velho? Que é isso aí, mano? Que é isso aí?
Olha, Marcelo, toma cuidado lá. Olha o tamanho do dente aquilo ali, louco. Deixa o Guilherme chegar perto. Cuidado, Guilherme, toma cuidado.
All right, guys. I'm trying to deal with the lighting and figure out what the best lighting is for the video. So I apologize for the darker and I'm just really trying to figure it out. With those video clips, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Guys, I never fear what you ever say. This is Dogman or a Dogman puppy or anything unless I know for 100% sure that it's what it is. The reason why I say about Kirk Stokes is because, well, Kirk Stokes has been researching these things for a very long time. And I know that he's a genuine person, and he is so genuine that when the wrong side of the community that if you don't agree with what they say will banish you, banished him, that he stayed banished, even though he's got some amazing encounters to share, experiences, knowledge, and photos and videos. So that's the only time you'll ever hear me say that that's a real Dogman. Anyway, on to the next encounter. I want to start by saying how I'm relieved that the Dogman is getting some much needed attention. It is a very real species, and I've been made to feel crazy by so many of my peers since my encounter nearly 25 years ago. My name is Sally, and I ran into that rare predator back when I lived in Cody, Wyoming. I wouldn't say I grew up there, but I spent a significant amount of time there, and I always felt that I was surrounded by good energy up until that day. When I was in my mid-20s, I used to be a guide for a little horseback riding operation that was close to Yellowstone's National Park. Because of its proximity to the park, we were usually pretty busy with tourists. Aside from the winter months, I did it for close to 4 years, and almost every day was the same routine because of this location. You would expect that we saw more wildlife than we did. I noticed that animals in and around Yellowstone National Park are very efficient when it comes to avoiding humans. Plus, you have to remember that so many people that go there bring children along. Those children usually don't understand that laughing and screaming more often than not deters animals that so many of them hope to see. However, this was not one of those cases. I think the noisy children had attracted this rare creature. I remember it was a crisp fall day. The leaves were as colorful as ever. The air was extremely brisk because the family had scheduled a ride for 6 a.m. 2 kids, 1 girl and 1 boy, complained about how early they had to wake up. Apparently, they had a very eventful day ahead and needed to do the earliest ride possible so that it wouldn't conflict with anything else. That was fine with me. I've always been an early riser, as I learned early in life that I am less irritable when I feel I'm always on the go. As how the kids often are, they eventually gathered enough energy to become rather hyper. We often had to ask the children to calm down because the horses clearly did not appreciate when they were overly loud. I've never much believed in it, but maybe it's true that some kids really do have ADD or ADHD or whatever. We were on what was the most popular of the 4 trails, and had been at it for an hour or so, when suddenly I noticed something totally scary off to the left in the thicket. Was this hunched over creature that appeared to be flanking us. I don't get how it's possible, but the thing seriously moved with total silence. Its motion made it look like it was quickly tiptoeing alongside of us. At first I thought it was a large, naked man, but then I quickly noticed it was covered in a dark brown fur and had what looked like the head of a coyote. It was seriously so weird looking that my jaw must have been hanging from my mouth. I'm surprised nobody noticed that I was acting funny right there and then. Perhaps the most disturbing part about the sighting was the fact that it was staring directly at those kids. It was easy to see that it was perfectly aligned with them, its gaze locked onto the boy, who, I should mention, was the youngest of the kids. Even though he was sitting on the saddle in front of his mom, I could tell that this creature was licking its lips, likely hoping we'd take a break at some point and leave it with a better opportunity of snagging its prey. I don't want to say anything because my instinct told me that if I pointed out the creature, everyone would begin to panic and thus enter into fight or flight. I had never seen a creature like this before, but I already saw enough to know that it was an apex predator, and I didn't want to do anything that would provoke it to charge us. The thing was so large, and there was no question whether it'd be able to tip a horse with minimal effort. All it would have had to do was pounce on that horse, and the parents and child would come tumbling down with it. I was never in even the slightest bit tempted to shout out in hopes that it may run off. It was obvious that it would lead to an unwanted result. I remember being rather surprised that none of our horses seemed to pick up on that fact. That there was a predator around the size of a grizzly bear stalking us, and who knows how long it had been there before I spotted it. Since we were over halfway point through that trail, I thought the best possible thing to do was to keep going, pretend like I had not seen it, and hope we made it back to the ranch without this creature attacking. I figured that the closer we got to civilization, the better our chances were that the creature would stop following us any further. I was trying so hard to remain cool and calm, but I'm sure the family had suddenly felt as if I was stoic and uptight. It's so incredibly tough to hide it when you're terrified out of your mind. Since I was in front of everyone, I made sure to limit the number of times I looked to my left because I didn't want the others to notice one thing that had captured my attention. I'd say it was a good 100 feet away from us or so. It blended in so well with its environment that it helped it go undetected. The whole time I'm bracing myself for any of them to start screaming after noticing it for themselves. I felt as if I was near a ticking time bomb, but without knowing how much time was left before the explosion occurred. Luckily, the particular horses that we had were very tame and not easily spooked. I was made fun of them for being a lot more like donkeys than horses. They were all on the shorter and fatter side and sort of oblivious to everything going around them. That helped keep things calm. I kid you not, it was the entire time since I first noticed this creature that it kept its eyes locked on that little boy. It was when we were about 5 minutes away from the ranch that it veered off out of my sight. It didn't return after that for what I believe to be obvious reasons. I never told the tourist family what had stalked us that day. I think that could have only led to negative consequences. Either they'd get freaked out that a monster was in the area, likely warn others to avoid their business, or they'd look at me like I was crazy and then warn the others. I didn't tell the owner of the business because she knew me well enough to know that I'm not a person to make stuff up or exaggerate. I did tell the owner of the business, because she knew me well enough to know that I would not make stuff up or exaggerate it. And that was when she revealed to me that she thought she had seen a Sasquatch a couple of occasions. Once while she was standing in her driveway, and another while she was on a road trip a few hours from the town of Cody. I've begun to realize that these encounters are nowhere near as rare as I once thought. I'd be willing to bet that they occur somewhere in North America every day. I can't help but wonder if the Sasquatch species and Dogman species are associated. My boss's stories would not be the only time that I heard about them coexisting in the same territory. I've lived around the wilderness, but I haven't seen anything else like the Dogman since that day. I've heard many strange noises, but the reality is that The reality is that regularly documented animals are capable of making such a wide array of noises. All you have to do is spend a single night camping in the woods to understand what I'm talking about. All right, so the reason why I didn't say anything about a second video clip is because that video clip reminded me of the experience that I just shared. Now, you might be saying, Jeff, don't you know the difference between a dog and a horse? Yes, I do. The thing is those horses, which are very keen on knowing everything around them. They're very spookable animals. Beautiful, beautiful animals. But I'm sure anyone who has been around horses knows how they can be spooked by a squirrel farting in the wind. You know, just anything can spook them. I remember one time when I was young, across the street, my great uncle had probably 10 horses in this pasture, and beautiful horses. I remember my favorite horse when I was younger, her name was Starbright, and she was, oh my God, probably the prettiest horse I've ever seen in my life. Well, there was another horse called Jacoby Boy, and that was my uncle's favorite horse. And I'll never forget, we were back there and we were haying them, putting hay out for them and stuff. And it was a fall day and a pine cone had dropped where Jacoby Boy was kind of sitting here, like there, and this pine cone fell out of the trees behind him. And when it hit this hard packed kind of clay, dirt, whatever, real hard. And it sounded, loud like that. It was quiet though. It was quiet up until that noise. And that horse jumped and took off running until, he came and did this half a circle and looked. My uncle's standing there calming him down. He was like a horse whisperer. He looked like you found him out of the woods, to be honest with you. But he was so soft to animals. I remember my uncle being 85 years old and saying, "Punch me in the stomach as hard as you can." Okay. But horses was his passion, and he calmed that horse down. But I'll never forget how just that simple pine cone. So anyway, back to the subject. If a horse didn't notice that a dogman was 100 feet from them, wouldn't it make sense that those dogs didn't? Or that dog didn't? I'm not saying that that's a real video clip or not, but it just points out that these things are masters at camouflage. They're an apex hunter. They're the apex predator of the forest. They're built, designed to hide and wait and jump and kill. That's what they're meant to do. So why do we automatically assume a dog would know it was there? So anyway, I got an experience that I'm going to share with you off the top of my head. It reminds me of this last experience as well. Children and a mom. So it was a beautiful kind of summer day, and this mom with her 2 young kids, a boy and a girl, were out just enjoying nature. There's kind of a little pull-off. They park and get out of their car, and they walk down this pull-off to this beautiful kind of stream. Rather large stream, not small, not like a creek, but a good-sized, in between a creek and a river, I guess, but a decent-sized stream, probably 4 feet deep at the deepest part. And the little boy, being a little boy, is kind of rambunctious. He's the youngest, and the daughter's with the mom. The little boy runs ahead, boop, and stops and stands on this kind of rock. And he's looking at the water, and the mom comes and the daughter comes, and they're just looking at the water. Beautiful day. You know, it's a place that you wouldn't expect anything to go wrong, right? The mom hears this growl, and she's looking around, and the little boy is oblivious. The daughter kind of hears it as well. And she looks over to the side, on the other side of the river there, and she sees this monstrous Dogman just standing. And it's glaring at her, but then it keeps looking at the kids in between the boy and girl. The boy is closer to the water than they are. And the mom says to the boy, come over here. And the little boy is just playing in this area. He's not aware of what's going on. I don't think the mom in her head was, she's like, I can't let the kids know. I've got to get them out of here. Because once they get freaked out, this thing's going to come over the water. It was clear as day that this thing could jump that stream in one jump. So she's looking at the creature, and she gets her son and her daughter, and they kind of start to walk back down this trail. And as they're coming to the end of the trail, they've got a turn and then another turn. You know, it's like the stream's here, and they have to walk, and then there's kind of a turn, and then there's the car over here. She gets to that first turn. Now, after that turn, she can see the car. She turns and looks, and the Dogman is now on their side of the stream, on all fours, watching them. She knows that she'd have to pick both her kids up, and by the time that happened, all 3 would probably be Dogman food. Thankfully enough, the Dogman just watches them leave. In her head, she's thinking, I hope my son doesn't trip. I hope, this thing doesn't come running up. She did the right thing by not getting worked up. But that's the key lesson is always be aware of your surroundings, especially when you have children with you. It reminds me, thinking about this, there's that case back in the 90s, I think it was, where, and I don't think they ever found the little boy. And I'm not talking about Dennis Miller, so please don't say Dennis Miller, because I'm not. This is out west. The mom, the dad, the young mom and young dad, and either the grandpa or just an older gentleman that they knew went fishing, and the little boy disappeared. And I think quite in reality, I think a Dogman or a Bigfoot or something, more so I think a Dogman, got him. Came out of the woods because the parents had turned their back, or they walked into the woods to go fishing. The little boy was with the old man, and he ran to the parents. He just disappeared. I really think that these creatures they prey on the little ones because it's easier for them to attack and get away with, And we're all easy prey for a Dogman if we do not have a weapon with us, but a child is much more easier. So anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And once again, I'm still trying to get used to doing this stuff in front of the camera. So I apologize for being off a little bit. I'll get there. I will. And hopefully I can master this light. I really don't. I can't figure out. I've monkeyed with the camera. I've monkeyed with the lights. Anyway, I want to thank you all for being patient, being supportive. May the Great Spirit watch out for us all. Wait, I said it wrong. Stay healthy and stay safe. And may the Great Spirit watch out for us all. May He guide us down that path that we call life.